Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. At this time, I will call this City Commission meeting to order for September 14, 2023 at 6:30. We will stand for our roll call. We will follow that with the invocation and then our pledge of allegiance.
Mayor James,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ambrose,
Here.
Commissioner Grunder,
Here.
Commissioner White,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here. Let us pray. Most gracious God, as we come now to discuss the business of the city of High Springs, God, we just ask you to lead us and guide us. Bless us with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, God, that we can do what's best for the city of High Springs. And God, I just pray for unity, God. I just pray for peace in this community and throughout this world. In your sweet holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. One thing I'd like to clear up for you before we get started or before we go any further. The adoption of the new utility rates was advertised in your water bill for today's meeting, but we are not going to be discussing that at this time. The new rates are still being analyzed, and notification will be sent out to you again via your water bill when the new date for discussion and adoption has been determined. So I want to make sure you knew that up front. Okay? With that, I will ask for a motion for the agenda.
Madam, may I make a motion that we approve the agenda?
I'll second the motion.
All right, it has been properly moved and second that the agenda be approved as printed. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, agenda approved. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Seconded.
All right, it's been properly moved that the consent agenda be approved as printed. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, consent agenda approved. All right, moving right along. We don't have a special presentation on your agenda, but I do have a proclamation that I have asked the attorney to read to us tonight. So bear with us, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, pleased to read this proclamation, which, of course, we all remember where we were on that fateful morning of September 11th, 2001, and I'm very pleased to read this proclamation in remembrance of that horrific event. Whereas on September 11th, 2001, the American people endured the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil in our nation's history with courage and bravery. Whereas the lives of 2,977 innocent victims were mercilessly cut short by terrorists driven by hatred and destruction. Whereas in response to this tragedy, Americans across this country came together with a remarkable spirit of devotion and unity to carry out countless acts of kindness. Whereas September 11th is a day to honor the memory of those who were lost and those who united in response to this tragedy, including first responders and volunteers. Whereas from the tragedy of September 11th emerged a stronger nation, renewed by the spirit of national pride and a true love of this country. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of High Springs urges our citizens to remember the victims and innocent lives lost as a result of the tragic events on September 11, 2001, and also to recognize the heroism of our firefighters, rescue and law enforcement personnel, military service members, and the many volunteers who responded to these tragic events with courage, selfless compassion, determination, and skill. In witness whereof, our mayor has hereto set her hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the city of High Springs, Florida, this 14th day of September, 2023, signature for Gloria James, our mayor, and signature for Angela Stone, our city clerk. The appropriate motion is to pass the proclamation of the city of High Springs of the state of Florida.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with that, we will move right along to item number 1 under budget. Discuss, consider, and act on Resolution 2023-N.
And Madam Mayor, I will read this resolution by title only.
All right.
This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of High Springs, Florida, relating to the levy of a general municipal purpose ad valorem taxes for the 2023-2024 fiscal year, beginning October 1st, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024, establishing a tentative millage rate, setting a public hearing, providing for the public notice, the publication of notice, and providing an immediate effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time will be to pass resolution number 2023-N, and as the statute requires, Madam Mayor, we have to state what the tentative operating millage rate is and how much greater it is than the rollback rate, so I'll do that right now. I'm sure our manager will cover that in a short bit, but the tentative operating millage rate of 6.9900 mils is approved by this resolution, and it will no longer be a tentative millage rate. It will be the millage rate that we assess if that's what is approved by you this evening. It is greater than the rollback rate of 5.5089 by 26.89%. So at the appropriate time, there will be the process of setting the millage rate. The public hearing will be held to consider the final millage rate and final budget for general municipal purposes, which will be on Monday, September 25, 2023, 6:30 p.m. City Hall Commission Chambers on the second floor of City Hall, right here at 23718 Highway 27, High Springs, Florida. So that'll be the motion at the appropriate time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, are you ready?
Okay. Kevin? Next one. So the tentative millage rate, I don't think this is the, Kevin, I sent you another one. Did you, that I just sent? Can you go to the next slide? Okay. So the, I didn't mean to include that other one. The current millage rate is 5.99. The rollback rate, which is the rate that would be in effect if no additional revenues are raised, is 5.5089, or the same ones from previously. Our proposed rate is 6.99. The amount that has been budgeted in the budget is 6.99. The impact of this is around $100 per 100,000 assessed value per home. Staff is proposing the increase in the millage basically to balance the budget. It's not for anything special. It's because the cost of fuel, the cost of insurance, the cost of supplies, basically all the things that go along with inflation have impacted us too. We've cut the budget down as much as we can without having drastic implications to service levels, and we find it necessary to request the extra millage. The increase over the rolled back rate is 26.9%, and the millage to be levied is 6.99. Again, should you approve? And then I'll go over the rest after you do this. The rest is for the budget.
Okay.
So if you want to discuss the millage at all.
Okay, discussion. Commissioners?
I don't know if we can really discuss the millage until we've gone through the budget. Are we supposed to pass the millage rate before we go over the budget?
Do they have to? I mean, I think we discussed the budget in our workshop meetings and the millage rate as well, so. And the meetings I've had with you, one-on-one.
I just wasn't aware that we had to adopt a new millage rate before presenting the budget and trying to make, any comments to the budget as presented. So this has to have a second reading, though, to be approved, right?
Yes, on the 25th. Any questions?
We could lower it at the second reading without redoing a notice, but we couldn't raise it, correct?
That's what I thought.
Okay. So even if we voted to raise it now, and then we do talk about the budget, like you're indicating, we could still, and we find a way to save $300,000 or $400,000, we could lower
We
it.
could lower it.
I think it's worth just saying that this does not come easy for any of us up here sitting right now, because I think we all understand where we're at as a country right now, and everything is going up. But unfortunately, I mean, running these numbers back forward and everything else, it doesn't look like there's another way to get there right now. So I'm hoping we can come with something else and maybe look at some things, but, I mean, it's nothing that any of us want to do, and I hope we can bring it back later when other things come online that we thought might be online this year that have not been. But, yeah, it looks like, unfortunately, this is what is going to need to happen.
I mean, there have been substantial decreases in the budget. It does include, the budget includes 3% for employees, but directors are not getting raises. Includes only the most basic necessary travel for people for certification so they don't lose those. We will probably be freezing some positions as the year goes by. We're going to continue to look for cost savings measures throughout the year, but even with the addition of the proposed millage rate is still going to be extremely tight, and we could have to take from we likely will still have to take from fund balance.
Okay. Any other questions up here? Okay, audience?
Okay, thanks. Wow. I think it's pretty hard to talk about the millage rate when you say that you have looked at the budget and you can't find anywhere else to cut. If we are looking at property and liability insurance, cost of fuel, those kinds of things, those are all expenses that every single person in our community has to incur. When we have our budgets at home, we have a certain amount of money, and then we make it work the best we can. We don't continue to add things on because there's no more revenue coming in. And to expect people to incur that kind of a millage rate when we know when we get to hear the rest of the budget, the utility bills and a number of other things are going to raise our consumers' cost tremendously. And I think that it's unfair to take this out of context with the rest of the stuff that's going to be happening, because it's going to end up falling on the backs of the community members. And I think that there's a lot that needs to be looked at in reference to, the things. And I understand that we're all facing it, but that's exactly why our city needs to look at other ways to make cuts.
Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment. The comment was that we added a bunch of stuff in the budget. So the millage rate relates back to the general fund. The only project added in the general fund this year was one night officer, and that was for safety purposes. So there wasn't a lot of extraneous stuff, if any, added to the budget, and we did substantial cuts.
Good evening, guys. Donald Alderman. This is a good time to bring this up again. You guys haven't done everything. You're letting revenue sit out there in taxes. I brought this up 17 years ago when I came up here with the annexation. We couldn't do anything then because of the boundary adjustment act the county put on us. When that was finally gone, we did nothing. We did no annexation. State of Florida Charter says any enclave or any island can be forcibly annexed in without choice. We're sitting here dancing for years when every house along the river there can be annexed in. You can annex in Camp Kalakwa. You can annex all these people in, and we can gain more revenue that way. At one point, it was almost 30%. When I first moved up here, 30% of lost revenue. I think we ought to be looking at that and going after it heavy. Send out letters January 1st. You're in the city. Tough. It's the way it is. We're providing services for them now. Police and fire, and I don't know about water, but we are providing services. They're going all the way into Ace Hardware here. They're buying product and picking it up and paying Lowe's for it. That's what we're doing here. We need to start making them people pay for the services they're getting for free. And they're high dollar along that river. They need to be paying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question in terms of Mr. Alderman's specific comment? Camp Kalakwa, is that not a church-owned property? Is that something that would be eligible for property tax since it's owned by a church?
That's not covered by the religious exemption.
Okay, okay. So that would be potentially, if that were something that came to pass.
I mean, I would need to look into it. I mean, typically churches do not pay, but
Right.
there's a lot of aspects to it.
Okay.
So it's hard for me to make a comment without looking
Yeah.
into that further. There's
Okay.
a lot of stuff at
Thank
Camp
you.
Kalakwa.
All right, is there anyone else? Okay. Commissioners?
Mayor, on a percentage basis, from the rollback rate, which the 26.9% is a lot, and that's state statute and how that information has to be presented. But realistically, you know, we're looking at about $12 a month per 100,000 of taxable value to maintain services. So I hear people talking about us cutting things. We like our fire department. 2/3 of that budget now is from other than general revenue. The commission's done a lot over the years. We used to pay 100%, or almost 100% of fire from general revenue. We moved 2/3 of it out between the county and the fire assessment, which everyone pays, including those people who have tax exempt property. The police, you know, we pay that out of general revenue. And, you know, water comes out of the water fund, and there are all these different funds. We can't necessarily mix some of the funds. General revenue is really tough. And, you know, for 12, given all the increases, and we haven't increased this in how many years? Have we been at 599?
Well, I think we've been at 599 almost 2 years now. We had done like a small increase that only gave us like $30,000 or $40,000 before that.
Yeah, and at one point, we were like 6.2 about 7 years ago. So we actually went down, and then we've stayed at a level. But the reality is, things cost more, whether it's tires on police cars, or the cost of diesel fuel, or the utility bill. And we talk about insurance. Well, the state of Florida, all municipalities have been hit with a huge increase in insurance based on the insurance industry. It's not something High Springs specifically did, but there's an abnormal increase in insurance costs to the community this year that is being borne across all municipal units in Florida. So You know, is it an easy choice? No. Would I like to find ways? No. Would I like to talk more about annexation? Yes, I would. You know, that's been a policy of the city not to forcibly annex any property owner out of respect to property owner rights. That policy may need to change, and we should have a discussion about that. But we can't snap our fingers and do that. You know, and I think there needs to be a lot of engagement in that, but it's a good conversation and it's a good place to be looking. To not continue to provide some increase in revenue to pay for the services we provide at a very high level, to me would be irresponsible. And I don't like it. But I'm inclined to agree that, you know, for $100,000 of taxable value, you know, it's worth another $12 a month.
Okay, anyone else up here?
Madam Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Walker. Is this something that we can table to a date certain, or do we have to make a vote on this tonight?
You need to vote on it tonight. The way the statute is set up, tonight is your first budget hearing, so you do your millage rate first. You vote on that as necessary, and as was stated by Commissioner Ambrose a short time ago, you can go down, you cannot go up from where you're at right now. You have the ability to go down at your final budget hearing, which is, I think, as I read, September 25. But you have to do your millage rate first, then you do your tentative budget, and then your final will be on September 25.
So we could pass a tentative millage rate tonight that's the same as we have now, and then could it go up after we had budget discussions?
No, you cannot do it that way. You can pass what you have before you this evening at the rate, and then go down from there if you are able to. Somebody said if we find $300,000 we can cut, then you can go down, but you can't do the reverse. You can't pass it at a rollback rate and then go up to the 6.99 number. And the purpose of that is that you're funding, as our manager said, there is the number that was at the rollback rate and the number that she needs now for the budgetary purpose that we're at.
Okay,
Could I speak again, please?
okay, come on.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. I understand that you're saying we need to have the revenue coming in, but the insistence is the revenue comes on the backs of the city members. One of the things as a budget person, you not only look at cutting things, you look at the spending that you're currently having, and you say, gee, how can we squeak more out of that? I can give a number of examples. I'm going to give just two. One of them is, for example, this AMI program we've got going on. We have paid out, I understand, a $1.3 million, and we haven't even had our first meter installed. So the question that I had when this came up was, with this contract, how come nobody's protecting the city for paying things on time? We're paying our bills, we have no meters. I question, why have we paid out $1.3 million for nothing? We need to look at that. A second thing is the money that we are spending on the new vehicles for the people in our city to drive is outrageous. It is. Now, I understand that we were under market when it came to wages and benefits, and people were leaving, good people were leaving our city to go to the next door neighbors, but that's not the case anymore. And these people, we got lots of people driving around in nice vehicles that really, I don't know, as they go for the range of a type of job that they have. So not only do we got to increase the revenue off of the backs of the people in our community, we got to look at where can we squeak some pennies out of this. And paying this kind of money out, I think that as we look, as this process goes through, is going to really look excessive.
I just wanted to comment on AMI, if that's okay.
Okay.
So it was around 1.2 million, and what that has paid for thus far is to initially go ahead and order the equipment. All the equipment has come in now. As of Monday, all the equipment came in. The meters, all of them. The meters will get ready to be deployed in the next month to 2 months. It's also paid for the software implementation. It's also paid for the data centers. So we have received a lot for the 1.2 million that has been paid out. So the remaining part of the project is proceeding, and you will see the meters being installed shortly.
All right. Okay. Commissioners? Somebody got to make a motion one way or the other.
I realize nobody wants to do this. I don't want to do this, but I'm realistic as well. And I would tell you this, that I hear the frustration, and believe me, every single one of us is gonna feel this as well. No, I do hear the frustration. I understand. I see the head shake and whatnot. We're in this together.
Don't address them.
We're not in it together? I don't live here? Okay. I make a motion that we adopt this as city has asked us to.
Do I hear a second?
Second. And before we vote, I want to clear up something. This is something we didn't do just overnight. We've been having workshops after workshops after workshops. The city manager and the finance director did their best to cut whatever they could. They really, really did. So don't leave them thinking that it was something we just throw it out there, throw it against the wall, whatever came up, came up. That's not true. That's not true. We really had workshops. And again, we're still going to keep looking at seeking if we can lower it, we can lower it. But we have to pay our bills. We have to. I don't want to, but we have to. We have to. Because, you know, if you don't pay your household bills, what will happen? They'll turn your lights off, turn your water bill off, come repossession. And I'm speaking, please. Now, I'm a straight up person. I respect you, you respect me. I want to talk while you're talking, so please don't talk while I'm talking, okay? Thank you. So, it's a hard decision for us, but it needs to be done. And the laugh out there, that's unprofessional. Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that Resolution 2023-N be approved. That's the roll call.
Mayor James.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ambrose.
Yes.
Commissioner Grunder.
Yes.
Commissioner White.
No.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 2023-N passes 4-0. Let's go to the next one, item number 2, which is ordinance 2023-11.
We can't hear you back here, ma'am.
She has asked for the next item on the agenda to be brought up, which is ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance adopting the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing for an effective date. And of course, the budget is attached to this particular ordinance as Exhibit A, and the appropriate motion will be to pass ordinance number 2023-11 as read by title only. Of course, Madam Mayor, this will come up for second and final reading on September 25.
25th.
Yes.
Okay, question, commissioners?
Is anything going to be presented, or are we just going to leave this
I
slide?
was going to go ahead
Okay.
and present. Just to preface it, the thing staff is still wanting to fix in the budget is just kind of the formatting, fix the numbering, fix there's some formatting that just can look a little prettier and nicer and more professional. So I just want you to know that we recognize that, and staff is going to have that all cleaned up for the final version. So the proposed FY24 budget is 17.5 million. General fund revenues and expenses are 7.2 million. Water and sewer funds, 1.4 and 2 million respectively. Solid waste, 1.75 million respectively. Building fund, 412. Water impact fees, this is the amount of revenue coming in. We have more fees, in our fund balance, but 12,880,000 for sewer. Transportation fund gets 518,000. Fire control fund, 2.5 million. Wild spaces, public places, 954,000 is the budget for next year. CRA, 447,540, so that does include some fund balance rolled up in there. Cemetery fund, 66,954. And then the next slide breaks down the departments in the general fund. As would be expected, police is takes up most of the budget at 2,769,000. Followed by Public Works. This is combined streets, facilities, and cemetery at 900,144. The other funds include City Commission, City Clerk, Human Resources, Public Information, Finance, Utility Billing, City Manager, City Attorney, Planning and Codes, IT, Parks and Recreation, that's in wild spaces, as well as a lot of operatings from the general fund at 395. The farmers market has been budgeted at 0 this year. There have been some funds for the farmers market placed in the CRA budget. So that's the outlook of the general fund. And impact fee balances, we have water, 213,361. We have no proposed projects decided on for that money right now. The sewer impact fees total $997,002. We had talked last year about holding back $960,000 for the wastewater treatment plant cost. That would bring the sewer fund down to $37,002. Next, we did put in place new impact fees that help pay for growth for general government, parks and rec, and transportation. Thus far, we have $49,000 in there for general government services, $29,000 for parks and recreation, and $40,000 for transportation. So that is one way that we were trying to raise more funds for things in the community, not off existing citizens' backs, but off of incoming development, so it pays for itself. ARPA projects, I just want to go over the projects that we did in the last year or two. Was the premium pay, the fire station roof, cardiac monitors, city hall roof, police body cameras, police weapon replacement, opioid task force, lift station pumps, emergency repairs to sewer emergency repairs, lift station generators. They have not come in yet. They're the only project that really hasn't been completed. City Hall elevator, purpose paging system, the grant match with the Bay Vent. We are holding back. Earlier, the commission asked to, in the discussions previously, was to hold back $1,040,000 for the wastewater treatment plant. Staff is recommending we hold back a little more so that we don't have to utilize other funds if possible, to 1.2 million, 1260000 to be exact. And we anticipate the infrastructure tax. Oh, let me go back to the ARPA funds. So that would basically take most of the ARPA funds if we did that. But we are working on a grant. So we do anticipate hopefully getting a grant to pay for that. So if we do, then that would free back up those funds. So, we have it held back, but there's a high possibility that we don't have to use those. The infrastructure tax, at the end of next year, we anticipate, at minimum, that we would have 700,000 in there. I put to be determined, on both of those, because on the wastewater treatment plant, we're waiting to see if we get the grant, for the remainder. And, the infrastructure tax, staff was wanting to have a more in-depth discussion with y'all at a future meeting regarding, how you wanted to utilize that. So, next slide, Kevin. I guess the direction this meeting is to discuss the budget. Hopefully you will pass it as staff has presented. And the next meeting for the second reading is Monday, September 25th. That is a special meeting, and the reason why is because the way state statute falls, typically, the second reading is not held at the second meeting. It always follows on a different date. So this year it would be Monday, September 25th.
Thank you.
Oh, do you want me to go over some of the projects as well from the funds? I forgot to do that. So the primary project, the only project that's really anything new this year for general fund was the night officer. Fire has no new projects. Water is the AMI. I would like to mention that once the system is fully implemented, then the way that is supposed to work is that it pays for the debt service, and then it has additional revenue on top of it that then would go into a fund. And within that fund, that money would be used when they get old one day as a replacement fund. That's the thought behind it. The only project in sewer is the wastewater treatment plant. Infrastructure, Thomas has identified a number of streets, but, we would like to further discuss that with you when we're ready to do them. The main project right now in parks is Catherine Taylor Park, which is partway through. Thomas has been working on that as well. Other projects we would like to identify at a later date when the Parks Master Plan is complete, and it's moving along fairly nicely now, so hopefully we will be able to get you a drop soon. The main project for CRA that we're wrapping up, we might have a little bit extra pay, but not very much, is the facilities plan. That is 96% done. I just kicked it back one more time for finishing touches, so you'll see that soon as well. We are working on the Priest Theater. Commission hasn't made any decisions on it yet. We've received an appropriation. I did have discussions with the state, and we have the option to buy the building, basically repair the roof, stabilize it, and then we could have the option to sell it right afterwards if we want. So we can save the building, and and then what happens beyond there, we likely should have some workshop meetings, because I don't know what direction the commission wants to go with any of it. But I thought that was a good news that was a possibility. That really helps things out a lot. And there's been enough interest within the community. I don't think that we'll have to match the money that we're supposed to match, $250,000. I think we can get it from the people in the community and won't have to take from the city budget, hopefully. So that's all on that.
Good. Thank you. All right, Commissioner, you got questions, comments, concerns?
Madam Mayor, if I may. I'm just going to go through some of the specifics here by department to see where we might not be able to shave some. The first one is City Commission. They've budgeted for us to get a 3% raise. I would say we don't get it. That'll save something. And if we rolled back to 2022 to give back the 3% we got last year, that'd be almost $1,700. It's not $300,000, but it's something. So that's one thing we could do. On all of these individual pages, I've gotten notes and questions on a lot of them. I'm looking at the retirement costs have gone through the roof. We have no control over that.
Right. It's-
That's all
They
state.
just, they
gone
give
through
us
the
the
roof.
numbers, and we have to suck it up. They're
We
very
have no
strict.
choice. Liability, property insurance has gone through the roof for everybody. We have no option. We have to pay it,
Right.
you know. So the retirement and insurance is a big ticket. Going to the city attorney's budget, Mr. Walker. We have here professional services, non-routine attorney, and we've got budgeted $16,000 for that. Does that include the magistrate, or is that just non-routine for Mr. Walker?
Well, it actually, I went back and tried to, because there's so much we put in the budget, I had to think it out again.
Right.
I think the reason we put that in there were for if anything comes up that the commission requests from Scott Walker's firm, but also there was money put in there for the discussions with Newberry and the regional wastewater treatment plant. We don't intend to go very far until we get more information, don't intend to spend a whole lot of money on that because they haven't given us enough information at this point to get back to you to go very far in those discussions, but it's there and just in case it's
So that
needed.
wouldn't necessarily be, that could be a lot of not Scott Walker's. fault.
Yeah.
We just don't really know.
Yeah, you just don't know how the year's gonna play out, so you budget some funds.
Okay, so fiscal year '23, we are projecting 16,000 non-routine. Fiscal year '22, we projected 15,348, where we had budgeted $5,000 for both of those years, so we went way over. I know we spent 18 grand and some change in the one ordinance. I don't know where we spent the rest. I think that was over 2 fiscal years, so that's not necessarily represented in 1 year. Is that correct?
I need to go back and check. Diane's not here. She's the one who does the bills. So, I mean, typically if
Okay.
it's in the budget, that would have been from this past year, like whatever aligns with the year on what you're looking at. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
I mean,
not on the
if-
same page as you, so.
If
I
we don't
need to
have the
get
money to do special projects or write special ordinances that we would need an attorney for, then we can't put it in the budget. I mean, that's somewhere we could cut. Well, we just don't have the money. If we could cut that back to the $5,000 that we've had, that's another $11,000 we could save from the budget.
I think it depends on what's going on and the ordinance. There's sometimes, like for instance, but I don't think you're charging extra for that. Some state statute things come along that we have to have them write ordinances for us and stuff like that. So I
And
just
that's
think
not
it
part of the
depends.
routine services?
That is part of the routine services. Sometimes you don't know how far they'll go and it can lead into other things. So like, we're gonna need some training on that. I don't know how much we're gonna need because we've never had to do this before. So it could be for anything, just to let you know. But I understand you're saying, some ordinances are more required, others aren't, so, or can wait.
So if it was a required ordinance, would that be covered in routine services?
Almost under our contract, almost everything that we handle is under the routine services, except for litigation. Or if you go outside of routine services, if one project starts creating an inordinate amount of time in our office, and it's very, very difficult to gauge whether that's going to happen or not, Madam Mayor. And let me give you an example. That wasn't in this city, but there was an employment-related matter that came up, and there was a great deal of time in that employment-related matter that exceeded the 10 hours. So what we do is we notify the manager and the mayor that, look, we're putting in a lot of time on this particular project, and we're estimating that it's gonna go over the 10 hours. So here's what we think is going to be necessary for our budget in that. And a lot of those things are not, we're not able to ascertain whether or not that's going to happen. It's just when you're in the middle of it. And the other piece of it, Madam Mayor, is that you can't stop when you're the attorney and just say, okay, you're on your own. You have to be there for assistance. So it's that kind of thing is how we handle that kind of item.
So your budgeted line item for routine services is for 10 hours per month, per week?
No,
You said 10 hours, that's what I'm trying to understand.
So our routine services are at a strict budget amount. that we charge. That's a retainer amount per our contract. And everything we do is under that. So if you have me coming here this evening, the typical work that I do on a monthly basis, or that my staff does on a monthly basis, that falls within the typical retainer contract. If we have something that is out of ordinary, and it's now, one thing is costing us a great deal of time, and we have a 10-hour break point, then we say, hey, we think this matter is going to exceed 10 hours. This is how many hours we think it will exceed the 10-hour line item, and this is what we think the cost will be for that. And of course, it's not an exact science. This is what we're estimating.
Okay. So that's the 10 hours, I understand.
Yes.
And the budget we have for the attorney professional services has gone up 11% over the last 2 years. But as I understand it, you also did not increase prior to that, as you could have contractually. Is that right?
That was the catch-up, remember, when you had it?
Right.
So do you anticipate that an annual bump for the next year, I'm just trying to look ahead, would be another 11%, or would it be, no? Okay. So, I mean, if we bump down the non-routine, we could save another little bit of money. Retirement again. On police, I'm looking down here at the very bottom, vehicle leases for the principal and vehicle leases, INT, is that interest?
I need to get to that.
It's page 8, at the very bottom. We're paying, we've got budgeted $87,882 for vehicle leases, and then $10,000 for vehicle leases. I assume it's interest. I didn't know we paid interest on a lease.
Where are we at? Yeah. So if Diane put that in there, we do.
How is it, I've never leased a vehicle. How is it that you pay interest on a lease?
Bruce, since you work on that, do you want to explain it?
I don't know what it's in there.
Yeah, like, that's what I was wondering too.
There's a man in
Do you know,
audience who
do you
knows
know
that.
the answer to that?
My name is Stacy Gay. I live at 17737 Northwest US Highway 441. Been here 42 years. Used to be part owner of the Chevrolet dealer. The city bought a few vehicles from us over the years, and we tried to provide a service, but I've never heard of a city leasing a vehicle for anything. That's ridiculous. That is a waste of money. And the interest charged is per payment, and it's usually a lot more cost in the end that you may not be aware of because of wear and tear, excessive mileage. Would you rent a house or would you buy a house? If we can't buy the car or buy the pickup, and by the way, I've seen some very nice pickups the city runs around in here. They used to buy straight trucks, you know, the bare bones. They didn't have to have all the leather seats, the power windows, and the aluminum wheels and those kind of things. I could show them how to save a little money on that for fleet vehicles and show them how to get fleet prices. I don't know who the purchaser is for those, but the lease was not the way to go. You could get out of the lease by just not paying for them, but we don't want to do that. We want to pay our bills. But you may be surprised at the end of the lease. The city may owe more money than what they think. They're going to owe some money at the end of the lease, because if it's got excessive wear and tear, which is going to happen when you have a lot of different drivers in the same vehicle. Not just police cars. I'm talking about parks and recreation trucks, fire department trucks, anything like that they would use. Water department trucks. So you got different drivers in and out of them, and I remember the city used to even buy used vehicles from me because they were in a budget crunch, and I'd say, let me see what I can, give me 2 weeks, let me see what I can find you. And a lot of times I could save them 30 or 40%. on a one-year-old vehicle, and it would still last the same amount of time. The thing about leasing is you don't own it. You have no asset there. When you buying it or you bought it, you do have an asset you could sell and turn into cash, or when it's wore out, sell it for surplus equipment. The lease vehicle belongs to the lease company. I don't know what kind of lease you have, but it's not a smart thing to do. I know all of y'all would rather, like I say, buy a house instead of lease a house. And most of the time, you don't save much money on a lease when you figure the other things that figure into that at the end of the lease. Even though it's in a contract, it's very tricky. It's made for the lease company to make the money. The lease company's gonna make the money. And it's just not good. If the city can't, if they need a truck and they can't afford it, just wait. That's what I have to do. I'll wait on it. I'll wait till I got the money to buy it. And that's all I got to say about that. I know of a couple other things too I'd like to mention about getting rid of some things. We got a property out here on the river. Why did we buy that? Why are we in the real estate business? Sell that piece of property. We got a $20-something thousand boat that was purchased for rescues. I've lived here over 45 years and I've never known of a river rescue that we even needed anything. You could stand up anywhere in the middle of the Santa Fe River. And I'm frustrated now, but we got some things that we need to get rid of. Some property, real estate. It's not even making payments out there if they had to finance it. It's not drawing any income. Thank you.
It was a
Could somebody please explain what the lease contract is all about?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Can you turn that down, Kevin? So the lease contract, first of all, is through a government leasing company.
Thank you.
The government lease has a buyout on the end. It's a fixed buyout, so there's no hidden cost at the end of the contract. So for instance, on our cop cars, at the end of the 4-year lease, there's a buyout of $8,000. The leases include unlimited mileage. There's a termination clause where we can get out early if we need to. There's also a trade-in value associated with the vehicle at the end of the lease, which is normally more than what the buyout is on those vehicles. All the vehicles are bought off a government contract. They're off of government pricing. Some of the vehicles that were just referred to that were nicer vehicles, we've had these discussions in multiple meetings. They were fulfilling the obligation of the lease that we had with that company, that they couldn't get the base model units during the COVID stuff. A lot of these vehicles were delayed. These were the base model packages that were provided at the previous price of the base model unit. We didn't go out speccing vehicles that way. It's what ended up happening to fulfill their end of the obligation of what we ended up with.
Okay.
So, for instance, the PD cars, things that weren't mentioned when it comes to leases. That includes their equipment in them as well. So just because the car was $40,000, you still have to put another $15,000 in equipment in those vehicles. So as we're buying these police cars that way, we're putting the equipment in. Every time we refresh this fleet, we're refreshing equipment in those vehicles as well. So there's a couple different ways we go about the leasing, and there's a couple different ways it's handled. But the payments on those are not much more expensive than if we went out and just paid for them outright. It's based off of government contract pricing.
Okay. So in other words, it's not like you're going down to the Chevrolet place and leasing a car. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
It's a completely different
Total,
lease
that's
setup.
also totally different animal.
It's like, for instance, I've had some discussions and there's this misconception that we lease the 2 new fire trucks. They're not leased. It is a vehicle payment, no different than like you have on your car note. It's just done through a company called Leasing 2 on the way we have to do our government financing on vehicles because they're a depreciating asset.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, follow up to that, Bruce? It seems, I mean, we own a lot of vehicles, though. It seems like we there's just kind of like a business plan shift to shifting to leased vehicles. And some of that happened before I got here with the Chargers, and they've been a problem, I know that. what's the business making process in terms of how we decide what to buy when? You know, because what Mr. Gay said, I mean, I can tell you my almost 16-year-old is not going to be happy because we're not going to be able to afford to buy her car. Her siblings got one, but we can't afford them because cars are crazy right now. So when did we make that shift to, it seems like, leasing instead of purchasing?
So in 2019, there was a shift to start leasing some police cars. We were in a situation where we had a very high age fleet, and Chief Shepherd can speak to this a little bit better than I can. We were buying used cars from Alachua County, we were buying used cars from other agencies, and the end of life and the amount of money we were spending on these vehicles was getting through the roof. We couldn't afford the 9 cars we needed to buy. So when we looked at the initial lease and they were sitting down looking at it, they said, if we bought 3 cars a year over a 4-year period or a 5-year period, it would be the same amount of money and we can lease and get them all now and start refreshing the aging fleet we had. The thing with emergency vehicles is most of your end of life on those is either mileage or years. And it's either 100,000 miles or 10 years. Most of the time with law enforcement vehicles, fire department, admin vehicles, things along those lines, about 80,000 miles is the industry standard to put them into a reserve status to where they're not a primary vehicle anymore because they're not reliable and there's other concerns with it and liability that goes with it. By the time that vehicle hits 10 years, we should be getting rid of them. Now, with COVID and some different things with the vehicle shortage from 2020, 2021, we're just now starting to catch up. For instance, this year with PD, we have their 9 going out of lease that we're refreshing that 9, and we added more to them in this year's budget to offset 3 or 4 more that we had that needed to be replaced from 2013, 2012. Did I miss anything, Chief Shepherd?
Comments on the nice cars we got, but I'd like you to focus on the old ones we have as well. So this week we have 4 cars just this week. So I think people like Jim Douglas Chevrolet is very happy for our services, and Southern Auto is very happy. But we just 4 cars, but there's actually another 2 cars, so that's 6 cars. And we picked up one of those vehicles. Our prices are average from $1,500 to $3,000 for repairs. Some of those vehicles are 10 to 15 years old, and so you and I probably keep a car that long, but a police car, it's very different. It's driven 12 hours, 72 hours, 0 to 100. So the mileage and the engine is double that. Those vehicles they're well over expired. We're paying a ton of money for repairs. And at the end of the day, we have to provide services. That car needs to crank up. And that's where we're at. We're in standstill with a lot of old cars. And we've purchased used cars before. That was supposed to be a Band-Aid, and some of those cars are still around. Those Waldo cars are still here. So we have to, I think, minimally fund operations of police like we should. Because when you call 911, you're going to want us here. You're not going to hear that car didn't make it.
On the non-emergency vehicles like Public Works, I'm looking at the 2022 GMC Sierra we've got here. What did we have before that?
It was a I don't remember the year, but it was a 4-door Chevy work truck. And that was sent down to one of the water plant operator. So that vehicle's still being used. It was just replaced. There was a vehicle due to be replaced. I think it was like a 2008 or 2007 vehicle that was replaced. The newer vehicle went down, then the Public Works Director got a new vehicle when that went down. And that was a lease.
So when it's singular purchases like that, why would we lease? When it's not a huge fleet, why wouldn't we just buy something?
Because at the time we couldn't get vehicles, and to buy the type of vehicle that was available, it made better sense to put it on as a lease. And some of the things with what vehicles are needed, it makes more sense to lease them. For instance, we bought a meter reader truck that is pretty much useless at this point to us. Streets is using it for some odds and end things and things along those lines. Where if we would have leased that vehicle, we could have turned it in and got a more appropriate vehicle for the streets folks to use.
Okay, so what is the terms for ending a lease early?
I would have to go through the contract and look at it. I don't know off the top of my head.
You know, because you don't want to impact the credit. You don't want to impact our credit by not honoring our commitment. But In fire, let's go to fire. We've got the old 2014 Chevy Tahoe. Is that the red one?
That's a 2013, but yes.
It says 14 here,
It's
that's
a-
all I know.
It's a 13,
So that's the red one that you used to drive?
correct.
And now we have a 2022 Chevy Tahoe, 2022 Chevy Suburban,
Yep.
and a 2022 Chevy Tahoe, including Kevin's.
That's not in the fire budget.
I know, those
Okay.
two that were in fire, it's $34,000 a year.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
still have the red one. Why were we able to do with only one non-emergency vehicle for I don't know how many years? And now we need three.
Well, let me correct you. It's an emergency vehicle. It's not a non-emergency vehicle.
But I mean, not a fire truck, is what I
It's
mean.
an emergency vehicle. Doesn't matter if it's a fire truck, it's an emergency vehicle. One, it was at end of mileage. Two, we added a deputy chief's position to assist with the operation of the fire department to help me with coming up here and doing the other parts of the job I have to do. And that was why that other vehicle was added.
Okay, just a huge expense. I mean, what's
Well,
that decision-making
The expense on the singular
process?
vehicle is like $14,000.
$16,000 a year for the Tahoe, $17,600 for
And
the
some change, correct.
Suburban, and then $15,600 for the PIO's vehicle.
Again, the PIO's vehicle is not out of the fire department budget, so let's.
I know.
let's
No, I know
clarify.
that. I know that. But it parks there, so I just associate
Right.
it with fire.
So we have a 2013 that's end of life. It's high on mileage. We looked at getting rid of it. We kept it as a backup so we can actually get our vehicle serviced appropriately. Which before, not even having the backup vehicle, if I needed to get my vehicle serviced, I either A, wasn't able to run the calls after hours, or I had to borrow a car from PD to be able to utilize to do my job effectively. So that was why the vehicle was kept. And with two of us on call, the amount of calls we're running within the city, it's needed.
Okay, then I guess the building department, we've got a 22 GMC Sierra that we've leased. What did we have before that?
He had a four-door GMC or Chevrolet work truck. I don't remember what year it was. And then that vehicle was transferred into Public Works to assist with the vehicle shortage they had. They got a new vehicle in the building department.
And then Parks and Rec has got a 2023 Chevy Tahoe, and if I remember Ashley correctly, Parks and Rec director did not have a vehicle prior to now, is that
They
correct?
had access to a vehicle, but they were not assigned a vehicle currently.
So there was access to one, but,
Right.
so there's no longer access to that one?
Prior, yeah, that vehicle is being used in other areas. There was, prior to Robert Bassford coming in as Public Works Director, Jerry Bratcher, Joanne Bell, previous Parks and Recs directors had vehicles assigned to them, but there was also limited staff in that department. There were either 2 or 3 people at any time, and those were the vehicles they used on a daily basis and used as take-home vehicles. And then as staff increased, they needed vehicles to do work, and with the addition of the new Parks and Recs director, there was a decision made to provide another vehicle back
I
to the
thought we
Parks and
only
Rec
added
director.
one new staff, and it was a nighttime fire, or police officer.
That was, well, when
No,
when the
this is-
new Parks and Rec director was hired, so it wasn't
Right.
an additional employee.
Okay, so between all the vehicles that we're leasing right now, I added it up, we're spending $214,000 a year.
Okay.
Take police out of that, because it is kind of a unique deal, it's 83 grand a year. I can't imagine that making payments on all those vehicles would come close to that.
It would. It would. If I had to replace those vehicles right now, I'd need about $300,000. And we'd have to finance and go out.
We would own those vehicles though.
We own them now.
No, you don't.
Yes, sir.
They belong to the lease company.
No, sir. No, sir. You didn't listen to what I just said.
I've been in that business a long
Excuse me, excuse me.
I
Please.
understand what you're saying, but how many government leases have you written?
A lot.
I doubt that, not under the new constraints.
Mr. Stacy, you have to address the mayor. You cannot address one employee, so please, you're being very rude right now, Stacy. Please don't do that, please.
I'm just trying to say the city.
Yeah, but you don't know what's going on, so please, okay? Come on, no, you don't. Listen, he don't know the outcomes, incomes, because he don't know, he don't work for the city. So please, let's keep this professional. Let's keep this professional.
There's a way to do this. Now let's do it the right way, all right?
Oh, hold on,
There's a
hold
way
on,
to
hold
do
on,
this.
hold on.
Hold
Wait,
it. No.
wait.
No.
Wait a minute.
No.
Here's how this works. We're going to have civility in the House tonight, and respect that you are acknowledging that. So, Madam Mayor recognizes citizens that want to speak. So before you speak on an issue, what I would request that you do is raise your hand. Typically, when a person wants to address the subject matter that's before the commission at that time, they have one opportunity to do so. And Kevin puts the timer on, and when the timer goes on. Now, Madam Mayor may allow, as she just did a little while ago, a citizen to come up twice and that sort of thing. So sometimes the rules become a little bit relaxed, but that's really up to Madam Mayor to decide that. So I understand and realize you want to comment on this particular issue, but what I would ask you to do is take your seat, and there may be more discussion on this issue before you are recognized, and Madam Mayor may not recognize you on this, because I think you've already been up and been recognized one time, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Kevin has already rung the buzzer on it. So that's the procedure that we use, and it's the way that we do it. But I would ask that you take your seat now, and then and raise your hand in a moment or two, and if Madam Mayor says, hey, I'll recognize you, then we'll do that.
Madam
Thank
Mayor,
you, sir. Appreciate that.
Can I answer Mr. Gates' question real quick?
Yes, go right ahead, please.
Can you come up for a minute, please? Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, come on. Well, we're going through. So, the way the lease works on these is it's a fixed payout at the end. It is just a flat dollar amount. There is no inflation. There is nothing added to it. It's an unlimited mileage lease. It is based off of state government pricing and contracting, based off of either what the Florida Sheriff's Association, the federal contract, so forth and so on, depending on what better pricing it is. So at the end of like the police cars, if you will, so the 2019 Chargers, there is a final payment of $8,000 at the end of it. We make that payment, we keep the vehicle. If we turn that payment in, they come in and do an assessment on the vehicle. They tell us how much it is and what they'll give us in on trade-in value, which will go back into the purchase of the new vehicle. So it's very strict on what it is. So some vehicles have 8,000, some have 15, there's different 10,000, so forth and so on. It depends on what the vehicle is and which one it is, but it is a flat payment that we would make at the end if we wanted to retain the vehicle. So if we wanted to keep all of Chief Shepherd's 9 Chargers, it would be $9,000 or $8,000 times 9 vehicles, and that would be our final payout. So just.
But I know about leases, and that's
Yes,
how
sir.
they all work. There is a final payment, and I'm not supposed to speak.
No. Sir. We're having a conversation. No, you're good.
I didn't address myself. I'm not here fussing at anybody, but it just doesn't seem good business practices to lease. I know we need the vehicles. We need them, and I understand. We were in a tight, but sometimes we gotta tough it out a little bit and just gnaw on it and fix that car, put a transmission in it, and use it another 6 or 8 months until we can get by.
And we've been doing that a
Yes.
lot. And
Okay.
you were down at Chevy when we were bringing
Right.
stuff in and out and
That's exactly
gritting
right.
along, and you know this as well as I do. And, I think if you.
It's not a personal attack.
No, I understand that. I get it. You and I have had many conversations, and I wanted to address your question. But, take the lease out. Whether we leased them or we financed them, this was going to be the same option in the grand scheme of things when it came down to it. We're not paying any more interest on the lease than we would have on a loan. And that's just where we're at this point. We're getting hung up on the lease terminology through Bancorp. It is, yes, while it's a lease because the way we can turn them in at the end and we don't have to sell them, or we can buy them and we can keep them and then we can sell them ourselves. So the option's ours at the end of this. The problem is we didn't have the money for 9 cop cars when we needed to do it. So we were either going to finance them or lease them.
And I think, may I say one of,
Yes,
I
sir.
think that emergency vehicles are needed.
Yes, sir.
But I don't think sometimes we have to go, and I understand when cars got short, they filled them with a few more options to try to fill the purchase. And I understand that. But it's just, for years and years and years, it's always been basic bone cars and trucks for all the departments other than the emergency vehicles, like the police cars. And I just don't understand why we're driving around with these nice-looking trucks with aluminum wheels and white letter tires. And I understand because, I'm contradicting, but it's just like, it's not good for the people to see things like that.
Right, and I don't disagree with you. We didn't order these vehicles that way.
Okay.
And I want to be clear on that.
Okay.
I didn't order a Z71 Suburban. That's a Ford Expedition sitting out there, by order type. That's what it was supposed to be. Kevin's vehicle, and I know we've had conversations about the PIO car and it being a Tahoe, that was supposed to be a Ford Explorer. And then it became an Expedition because Ford couldn't fill the order. Then it became what it is now. The truck that Public Works drives, that was a bare bone Chevy work truck, 4-door, 2-wheel drive. And what they're in now is what they got. I'm glad those are leases at this point because we can get rid of those at the end of these leases and put them back into what's appropriate for the job they're doing. So that lease will be up, not this coming year, but next year. And we'll be looking if we stay the lease option or we take the buyout on that vehicle. But either way, we can, we can get back into what's appropriate. But we couldn't get vehicles in 2020. We couldn't get vehicles in 2021. They just weren't available, so we're getting what's available. I mean, Gainesville lost 150 cop cars. And this is the back order stuff. We had, we went to order some vehicles 2 years ago, which is when some of these vehicles came in, and we just couldn't get them. We still can't get vehicles. I mean, we ordered a vehicle for Public Works, a claw truck, a year ago, and it's still not here. We ordered the new fire trucks that are sitting over there at the end of 2021, beginning of 2021. 24 months later, they finally showed up. So these are just the issues we're running into constantly. So I'm just telling you what I'm up against when I'm looking at this. It's either walk or provide vehicles, and that's what we're up against.
Okay.
Bruce, you can run.
I'm not too old to run at this point.
Okay, we thank you, sir, okay?
May I say one thing?
We got to move along now.
I got another
you
question, if I could, Madam Mayor.
All right, we got
Go into planning and codes. We've got a line item here, codes contractual services. That looks like there's a lot of new stuff in codes. Is this just being moved from somewhere else, perhaps, and not necessarily a new expenditure?
I think that is the magistrate, and
Oh, okay.
and we also, y'all just approved at the last meeting the the registry that they help with the foreclosed properties and all of that stuff that we actually end up getting money from.
But that's actually kind of a pass-through,
Yeah, it
though.
is a pass-through.
So this 19.2 here is the magistrate?
Well, he gets paid $1,500 a month, so I need to check with Chris. I mean, when we went through all the line items, I was asking these same questions. I can't remember what the extra 1,000 is, but the primary.
So where is our new codes enforcement guy in here?
Well,
Just-
he's included in
He's just a
regular
part of the
salaries.
regular salaries? There's no?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's,
That's Christy and Chris.
Right.
That's our
Okay.
planning tech and our codes officer.
okay. I had a conversation with Eric May. I appreciate you hooking me up with him. The last contract we signed with them was in 2014. Would it behoove us to look at that contract?
Well, we actually, this past year, we entered into negotiations with him where he's charging us a flat fee now every
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
And so that is supposed to help. We can go ahead and relook at this again. I mean, it's always good to relook at contracts and see where there's room for improvement, because there always is. And so I'm happy to look at a number of contracts the upcoming year. There's many we need to. But we did go to the flat fee to try to save us monies.
Well, I'm
because-
looking just at the numbers. In 2022, we had 73 budgeted, and now we've got 170 budgeted. And he talked about his lump sum, he's billing lump sum now.
Right.
$14,000 a month for professional services. 80 hours per month is what he estimates he's going to be spending. So that comes out to $175 an hour. That's a lot of money. Now, the IT support, in the new age, we cannot get away from having it. We have to have it. I went over all these line items. He explained to me what it was. But going back over to Kevin, when they hired Kevin full-time, he was supposed to be 50% IT and 50% PIO. If he were able to even take some of that, where we could decrease their, he's already here, we're paying him. I don't know what his IT experience is. I wasn't here when that happened. But, if we could cut that $14,000 a month down, and, Kevin could do some of that, that could help us save some money too.
So Kevin still does, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Kevin still does IT. I mean, I don't know how
Oh,
much you do
I
compared to how
misunderstood.
much you used to.
You told me he did all PIO.
No, he has increased the amount of PEO he does, so I think it's probably less than he did year one. But he still like orders things for us, and he still like checks on some minor things. Do you want to go ahead and talk about it, Kevin?
So typically when people submit a trouble ticket with problems, as our processes have developed over the 3 years that I've worked here, I've kind of realized the project that I'm capable of taking and the project that I'm not capable of taking. So when I see those trouble tickets come through, if it's an issue that I believe that I can resolve working with that individual on staff, then I will. I close out the ticket and there's no legwork required by Emerald Data. Some of the things I have the knowledge to achieve, however, because of the city's strict security infrastructure that's in place, that would require me having more access to the network as a whole to perform those repairs, and that's not something that we're ready to take on at this moment.
Why is that?
The idea is that IT wants to be able to have a clear method for the network as a whole, and by limiting access to certain parts of the network, it ensures that security.
Okay. So then that's not a reasonable way to try to save some money. Is that what you're saying, Ashley?
Well, I mean, we will continue to look at IT because it's one of the highest expenses in the budget. We've gone over a number of solutions again and again. I mean, another thing that's also included in that, I don't know if Eric told you that, but, we have upgrades we need to do and stuff, and so
Yes, yes.
that is included as well. I don't know if the magic number is 14,000. All I can say is that we did discuss with him, and every year, even after those discussions, we put in a certain number, and then there ends up being more IT things that come up during the year. So we like to be prepared for it, so we budget adequately, and we don't end up having to, the goal is not to dip into fund balance and to stay within budget, but there's emergency things that happen that are unexpected. A lot of it is things at the police station. The majority of the IT is things that occur at the police station, and a lot of those things aren't things that we can, as staff, not do. So
Okay, so you're saying
I would be
that's
worried
not-
of cutting the IT budget because we always do that, and then it's impossible to make it during the year.
Have we looked at RFP in that?
We could, I think Emerald Data provides really good service, and they know our system really well. And I would have to look into it further because IT is not my strong suit. And so of the pros and cons of that, whether it's a good idea, because, they have a lot of things at Emerald Data that we would possibly have to invest in or maybe not. I mean, it just depends on how the RFP was worded. I would have to become more knowledgeable to determine if that's the way to go.
Okay. Did you want to take the question, ma'am, or do you want to keep going?
I want to know, do you have a lot more to do?
I have a couple more things, yes, ma'am.
Let's go through us and then do public comment.
Yeah.
Okay. On roads and streets, there's a line item on page 12, 29,436, and it has no description associated with it. So my secret hope is that that's just an extra $29,000 that we don't have to spend? I
There
don't.
have been a number of renditions in this budget. I'll have to go, is there, which page?
Page 12.
12.
Okay.
And you know, I thought maybe it was overtime, but the overtime budget we have there is pretty consistent with what we've had. So it just kind of seemed like an outlier.
Is it 29,436?
I'll look
29,
into that and see what
436.
it's about.
Okay. Let's see. We've got $30,000 in Parks and Rec for player uniforms. That used to be, 2 years ago, $9,000. Why the big jump? I mean, do kids
We
not pay
have-
for the uniforms?
Yeah, it's a pass-through. I mean, they charge a fee, we budget, it's a pass-through fee. We just have more people playing sports.
So this is not really a genuine cost. This is just passing
Right,
through and?
yeah.
Okay, well, that's a good thing then. Contractual services for Parks and Rec for the Canoe Outpost, we have 96,953. Do we have any contractual services anymore?
Let me go back and check on that.
On page 1, Parks and Rec.
Are you looking at Wild Spaces?
Wild Spaces, yes.
We have, so that, we have money left from the debt issue to do projects. And so there's contractual services would include things like, you know, the electricity that needs to be repaired at the building. Like, it's things like that. It's the renovation cost.
So
And
I thought
that's
that
why-
was for Anderson Outdoors.
No.
When I saw contractual
No,
services.
it's for the other improvements that need to be made. We just put it as contractual.
Okay. All right, we've talked about vehicle leases a lot.
Oh, okay.
That's another vehicle lease. Oh, in water and sewer, this might be a question for Thomas. I didn't see any kind of line item for analytical costs, what we're paying the lab to do, because we've got lead and copper coming up this year, don't we? I don't see anywhere here where that's a separate line item, how much we're paying.
Or contractual services, is it? Yeah. So it's in operating and contractual services, I believe. But also some parts of the lead and copper will be done with AMI as well when they're putting the meters in, not the analytical.
We still have to pay the
Identification,
analytical.
so we know where to do the analytical.
I'm just curious to know what we're paying for things, because that's somewhere where I could give some people some trouble. Okay. Solid waste, oh, he left. I was gonna ask Mr. Walker where we were, because, you know, we've got 2 options for waste haulers. We can't use anybody else. The 2 of them are just gonna go back and forth and raise the rates, you know. I think we can all agree that our current contract is doing a lot better.
Yeah.
But if we've only got 2 options, how competitive is that process going to be? Does anybody know if Scott has met with Gus Olmos yet?
I do not. He's here when he gets in.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your patience.
Okay. Any other commissioner?
Yeah. Looking at this budget, there's a lot of it that disappoints me. And part of it is how it's, I don't know how it's ended up this way, but it doesn't tell the story about policies this group has set. And the numbers have been really, changing so rapidly as we've gone through this budget process that I'm still not confident. And as I look at different things here, I see some numbers that I'm like, I don't think that's right. And I think you've clued in on some of them. I'm sorry, but if you're paying people, there should be a line item for reemployment tax. And if there's no item listed in the budget in that department for reemployment tax, something got missed. You know, I don't see the revenue forecast in the latest version that I received for the revenues we should expect for the half-cent infrastructure tax showing up as available road funding money. And, you know, our role, I've sat in that audience as a commission has gone through line by line by line, and it's tedious. You know, down to the point where they were looking at how many reams of paper they were going to allow the pay. I see a citizen laughing because they remember that conversation. I don't see that as our role. I think our role is to hold staff accountable for the budget they put forth, and that they should be encouraging us to engage in conversation. So I'd love to have the conversation Commissioner Whites has brought up about IT. And I understand, you know, why we have to have a certain level of IT that has some hands-off from actual city employees. So I get it, but one of my questions has been, at what point do we hire a full-time IT person? And I think that's a policy decision. The same way there was a policy decision about leasing vehicles at one point. And it was a big debate, and city staff has implemented that, and we've ended up where we're at. So, that's one thing. There's $100,000 in the budget for facilities planning, for public works and our streets. I don't know that I'm in favor of $100,000 being in the budget for a facility where we don't even know where it would be located or exactly what departments are gonna be in that building. But I'd be really interested in a conversation if the other commissioners, whatever, but we're not gonna have that conversation probably. Should that go into capital equipment that makes the employees we do have on staff more functional? Do we upgrade tools? We have a dump truck that is pretty much unusable. Spent over a year in a repair shop. We have a road grader we don't use, but we probably could sell that and use that $100,000 and buy another piece of equipment that might make our employees a whole lot more functional. And I'd like to have that debate, but we haven't done that in this budget process. So next year, I'm definitely gonna be hollering about some of this a little sooner. I look forward to the changes, like you mentioned, page numbering.
Yeah.
I get really suspicious when I look at a packet that has more than one page number 1, because that tells me this data didn't come from someplace. Each page was created individually. And if the data's not all linked together, then I'm suspicious of it. So I do not believe there's been any malice. I believe city staff has worked their tails off collectively as the departments to be able to put something forward that we'll be able to adopt. I also believe we're gonna see some changes between the start of the fiscal year and the end of January and how we look at things, especially when we finalize how the year ends. Because I'm also not in agreement. There's a line item for $50,000 in the police department of uncollected overtime revenue that's due. Well, I don't know between now and the end of the month who hasn't paid us or who's going to pay us that's really $50,000. So, I don't believe that number. So I'm willing to vote for this because we have to have a budget in place by the beginning of the year. And I believe the revenue forecasts will be able to stay in. I mean, by state statute, we can't not have a budget in place by the beginning of October. We have to. So Tina Certain said a real similar comments, I think, to what I'm saying about the school board budget the other night. She didn't necessarily want to vote for it, but was going to, because we needed to have one in place. But I'm expecting staff to come back with something that's been triple checked that we look at and vote on by next week, that is a little more collectively put together. And I think as a commission, we should be looking at opportunities for these policy decisions, including in the budgeting process. We should have been talking about, annexations way earlier than the night we have to vote on the meeting, and make a decision on whether we want to continue a policy or not. And we haven't done that. Do we need to? Yes. But I know staff are working really hard. And, we talk a lot about these vehicles. Bruce didn't mention it, but between Kevin's deployment just last year in Ian and Bruce's deployment, their 2 vehicles alone brought over $8,000 in revenue back to the city, because those are billable vehicles when they're deployed. So Kevin went to North Carolina. We billed the state for that vehicle. I know Bruce's billing for Ian was over $6,500 just for the vehicle. And the state will reimburse us for that. So, there's another side to that whole equation. I also know when Air Liquide had the explosion, the first responder on site with bunker gear, radios, and computers to access databases was Bruce. So, do you not want to have that available when something like that happens? I mean, not me. So a lot of the citizens have some good comments about this. And maybe offline citizens should talk about some of the revenue funds, because we can't move some things from some buckets. We're limited. But I'm going to be in favor of moving forward with this because we need to, and I strongly encourage staff to really look at some of these numbers and make sure they're in alignment. And personally, my format that I like, and I don't know, this is the question we can ask, what format do you like? Because a little hard to read when it has 12-digit budget numbers, but I'm looking at real numbers that are in the city's computer system and our budgeting system and how things are coded. And I like looking at that better than I do a spreadsheet this way, but that's me. And I will stop.
That's all right.
So, and I get your questions, Commissioner Whites, because I used to sit and do that too. Look at every one of those little items.
Yep.
And that's how you learn about the budget and how it comes together and trends. So, thank you.
All right, we have anything else for commissioners, or can I go to the audience?
I have a couple quick questions that are probably pretty easy to answer. What's our current water rate? Is residential different from commercial?
Yes, different.
I'm looking for water, wastewater, what the average usage per month, and what's leaving the plant. And while Bruce is looking that up, Mr. Walker, maybe you could, I went on so long, you had to take a little break there. Have you met with Gus Olmos yet about solid waste options for waste haulers?
I have not.
Would you be opposed to me doing that?
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Rate for water is 1094, and then it goes into first 3,000 gallons is 2.95 per thousand. Next 2,000 is 3.33.
10.94 per thousand?
At base rate.
Okay, it's base
Your
rate, and then
minimum is $10.94.
10.94 plus, what was the first?
And then the first 3,000 gets $2.95 per thousand, up to 3,000 gallons. Then the next 2,000 after that gets 3.33 per thousand.
Okay.
And then when you hit 10,000 gallons, you go to 3.62 per thousand.
I don't think most people are doing that in their houses. So then what's wastewater?
Sewer base rate is 41.67 up to 5,000 gallons, and then it goes to 7.35 per thousand thereafter. And then commercial rate for sewer is different. Commercial rate for sewer is 54.20 up to 5,000, and then the bill per thousand after that's the same at 7.53.
Okay. And do we know what an average residential usage is? I mean, do we have that kind of number, or is it just very different?
It's really dependent on what the user uses.
Yeah.
We have a lot of base users. That was part of what we were looking at when we looked at the lost revenue water. We looked at that 38% last year when we had Florida Rural Water come in, which spurred the whole AMI discussion. We have some meters that aren't working appropriately, that are going in the customer's favor. And we found that some of the Tesla meters were off by 1/10 of a thousand in the customer favor as well. So 10 per thousand.
Which is something that's important to discuss, that everybody's water bills, most people's water bills, when we get the new meters, are gonna go up.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure that's something we're communicating. I mean, maybe you are.
Well,
I haven't been really.
So as the city manager stated, a lot of the meters have showed up, or I think they're all here now. So there's a whole pile of stuff here at this point. All the antennas are up. The test samples are going good right now. All the little tweaks and stuff with IT had to happen. And there'll be a video rolling out Monday with what AMI is doing. We're going to start talking about the town hall meetings. All that kind of got skewed with the hurricane and some different things. So we'll start throwing those out, and they're looking to start around the first or second week of October, starting to put in some meters. So it'll start coming into play, but we have an estimate on what revenue loss is coming in based off of the Florida Rural Water Study, but we truly won't know what the impact's going to be until it's up and running and online. But it should all be online, by December.
Did you say we're 38% non-revenue water? I thought it was 48.
38.
38%.
38. I'm pretty confident. I'll pull the study and I'll send it to you. Just
Okay.
All right, do we need any other for the commissioners? Okay, audience. No, it's later.
I didn't introduce myself, even though you all know me. Nancy Piety. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to try not to do what Catherine did, although I have everything just as highlighted as she did. One of the things that I'm going to ask, though, right away is when it comes to your IT budget, and I promise you, I mean no disrespect when I start asking these questions, although it will sound this way. Are you a 24/7 IT?
4/7 IT?
Yeah.
Yes, if we need them, then they'll come out.
Okay, okay, and you're paying $14,000 a month? Okay, so when you said I'm not very versed in
Well,
IT,
no, I mean, that's not my area, you know, I mean.
I totally understand.
Kevin is the one who really manages it more than
But
me.
when you say you're not very versed, that's why you're getting taken advantage of. $25,000 a month, 15 people, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. You guys are being taken advantage of, period. When it comes to specifically, we all know what my pet is. I want to talk about water. I still see here on the budget where you have $4.2 million sitting out here on this grant. So,
She said
Page-
water.
yeah, page 27. So your sewer capital projects is still showing this grant out here where you guys are still planning on doing the extension. Is that correct?
Page 27.
I don't see anything for 4 million on sewer.
Grant WWTP expansion
Water.
DEP, $4.2 million.
Sewer treatment plant.
Yes, the wastewater treatment plant, we received a grant. and
Yeah,
then-
so that's the one out on 236.
Yes.
No.
No.
No, yeah, the one by
Okay,
out there by
wait,
the-
hold on, guys. I'm getting a shake of a yes
Oh,
and a no. So,
Yeah, that's no. This is the wastewater treatment plant that we're building out near, Tillman Estates, where Bridal was gonna be our existing plant. It's out there. It's an expansion to our existing plant.
okay, so I want to understand exactly what I'm looking at because I've also seen where you guys are paying your debt service and, sorry, I'm going to continue to look real quick. You're paying debt services and you're paying off bonds. These are on projects that you've done years ago that you still haven't paid off bonds on? And you still have debt service on them?
It's typically 30 years on bonds.
Okay, so my question for you is, you're going to do new projects, you have yet to pay off old projects. You are buying new cars, you have yet to pay off old cars. This is a compounding problem where you guys are not, so you made an issue of the 2019, 2020, you had trouble getting cars. Totally understandable. So we made a bad decision and went with leasing, and we're gonna continue to compound that bad decision.
I don't think that the decisions that have been made are bad, quite honestly. I think that's a matter of opinion. As for, the wastewater treatment plant, we're at capacity. And so when you reach certain thresholds of capacity, then it's time to build a new one. So that it's
But you haven't,
required.
you haven't paid off the old one. This is literally like me buying a third house when I can't make payments on my first.
Sometimes
This-
issues happen with wastewater treatment plants and you need additional. It's for several reasons. It's a safety thing and it's because there are already, lots platted on the ground that you have to provide capacity for.
Are you done? Because the time is run out here.
So in the same vein, you guys have $350,000 in huge $100,000, $125,000 line items for the canoe outpost.
That's from Wild Spaces Public Places, that's a special revenue fund. We received money from the Conservation Trust for that, and we also received money from other sources. And
Good.
I'll stop.
Again, the problem is if you sold that property, you wouldn't be paying anything for it. You guys are paying money that you don't have to. This is, again, you're just going to the grocery store and being gluttonous. You buy
Okay.
what you need.
All right, thank you. All right. Okay, commissioners.
We got another hand up out there.
Oh, okay.
In closing, I think that the people in our community have every right to come up here and to add not only what they're thinking, but their expertise. It does concern me that they come up here and they say their little spiel with the buzzer going, maybe 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then they sit down and people on this side of the fence are allowed to make their comments in return, and then it's like, well, their comment, that's the one we're going with, or it's just a matter of opinion, and we happen to have this opinion, and this is what we're doing, even though it's not a good decision. I think that we need to have a better way of communicating this stuff and communicating ahead of time so that we're not walking into a meeting where nobody's had a chance to look at these numbers. Even the commissioners aren't seeing the right numbers. It just looks like the management needs to improve.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I please say something about the
Yes.
wastewater treatment
Yes.
plant? The majority of that was from a grant, and we are still seeking grants for the remainder portion of it. And we've been told there's a highly likelihood we will receive it. So there is also a highly likelihood that beyond the impact fees, the hope is we won't have to pay anymore. So debt isn't being taken out at this point for the wastewater treatment plant.
Hello, guys. Donald Alderman again. As Commissioner Ross said earlier, I don't see anything nefarious in this. I understand how things get caught up, and we get caught behind the 8 ball with commitments we already have, but then the costs keep going up. I understand that. And as well for you, I'm talking to online and the public, this is where we get into trouble if we start attacking things like police and fire. Someone will want to get rid of it. We do not want to get rid of our police and fire. Trust me. We need to keep on those. Once you give it up, you lose the autonomy. You're at the mercy of someone else. Newberry and their one sheriff is not happy. Okay? We don't want to do that here. We need to at least maintain that. And I understand about the vehicles and stuff, and I know where we're on that, so I've got no problem with that. And I would love to sit down and talk with you about the annexation thing and see what we can do with that.
We want to annex.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, the issue hasn't been that we don't want to. The issue has been the amount of staff we have, quite honestly, in setting priorities. Now, we have been, if that's a higher priority, we'll move that up and stop working on other things. But, we started going through this strategic planning session, and then we kind of ended up coming to a halt because that always kind of happens with a lot of things during budget season. So after we get a budget passed, the hope is to re-pick that up and try to complete it. And so all these priorities and things people are talking about, that's the point of it. And so I encourage people to come when we pick that back up. So we can get the things on there like IT and annexation, and then get the #1 priorities, and we can move forward on those things. The reasons we started that was because we want to be doing the right things, and we have accomplished a lot of things from the other strategic plans, so it's time to do it again. So there's been a lot of positive things that have come from this discussion.
You know you have me as a resource if you ever need me.
You can come up to my office and sit down and work on annexation anytime.
You may not want me there as much.
I will.
And-
I'll tell
and,
you. I'll show you how.
And Mr. Ambrose, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about it too, and we can get maybe somewhere to go from there. I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Madam Mayor, if I can add on to his comment, I reached out to somebody in Newberry to find out what they pay for their sheriff's deputy to be there, and their budget is about $850,000 a year, and their service can't touch what we have here. So, Alachua has a police department, they have no fire. Newberry has a fire department, they have no police. We have both, so that makes us very unique. And we do have to pay for that because we do have that level of service. So you can't compare us, blanket to our neighbors to the south or our neighbors to the east, because they don't have both.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. And recognizing where we are, I don't think any of us are totally happy with where we are here, but we realize what we have to do. So at this time, I will entertain whatever motion you commissioners are offering.
I make a motion, we approve on first reading ordinance 2023-11, the budget for the coming fiscal year.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that ordinance 2023-11 be approved. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Whites,
No.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Mayor James.
Yes. All right, ordinance approved 4-0. All right. We'll move on now to unfinished business. Item number 1, ordinance 2023-10.
Madam Mayor, I'll be glad to read this by title only. This is ordinance number 2023-10, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended, relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z 23-03 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for the rezoning from R1 residential to C3 commercial of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion at the appropriate time is to pass ordinance number 2023-10 upon its reading by title only. You have the opportunity to deny the ordinance or to continue it to a date certain in the future. This is a quasi-judicial procedure, so at this time, if anyone is expecting to talk about the ordinance or testify, if they'll stand up and raise their right hand, and I will swear them in.
Is there anyone out there to speak on this particular issue?
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And the witnesses have been sworn, and since this is quasi-judicial, if we can go through,
Okay.
starting with Commissioner Grunder, are there any ex parte communications that you've had about this particular subject matter?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No.
Thank you. We're ready to proceed.
All right. Commissioner?
So, I mean, this is second reading. We already passed it once.
Yeah.
There are gonna be some issues with the setback from the 300 and 500-foot zone. When they come back with their site plan or whatever the next step is that administratively approved or does that come back to the commission?
That comes back to the commission.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone from the audience? No one there? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we pass ordinance 2023-10 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that ordinance 2023-10 be approved.
And Madam Mayor, the reason that you're going forward with it this evening is we've already had testimony presentation. The builder, the landowner, and his agent has been here and testified.
Okay.
Staff has testified, just so that folks in the audience understand that you're basing your decision this evening on testimony that's already, and evidence that's already in the record based upon your prior reading of the ordinance.
Okay. We're ready.
Commissioner Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Whites,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Mayor James,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Ambrose.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2023-10 carries 5-0. Okay. Item G is citizens requesting comments for issues that are not on the agenda. And please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
I don't have anything to complain about tonight either. How about that? So, I wanted to comment on a couple of things I heard tonight. Basically, just kind of back up some other people that spoke about our police department and our fire department, and public utilities here in town. I think everybody in this town hates directional bore machines. I think we had an accident last week or week before with a crew coming through town, you know, just making improvements or whatever. The point of that is improvements are painful sometimes, but those are other things to be considered in your budget, because that wasn't expected, but it wasn't free to make the repairs. So anyway, I wanted to be happy and cheerful tonight and put a smile on everybody's face and let you know got a few things coming up that we're involved with. Oh my goodness, soccer is going on again. So we're sponsors for a couple of teams out there. So I don't know how that plays into uniforms, but we did make a contribution to that. And what else? We got Fall Festival coming up. And biggest thing for us right now is the planning for the car show, which is on October the 28th. And spoken with Sue Weller today in a phone call. They actually want to move their pumpkin carving contest out a little more in the open, which will be, we're going to kind of work together to bring people in and make everybody happy. I appreciate all the work that y'all do. That was a tough situation tonight to bring that up. And, you know, the comments made about the vehicles and whatever. Every day I learn how patient I need to be. And my MO is that I say something before I think about it. I mean, I shoot from the hip all the time. Sometimes I'm good about it, but, you know, if you hear the whole story, you wait and gather all the information. Some of the stuff that comes out in the news and the way gossip travels or whatever, you may hear something that is, you know, totally the opposite when you get down to the brass tacks. So it's not just for the commissioners, but for everybody in this room and anybody that might watch today the video of this. But just appreciate everybody, and I think we all work well together when we stay calm and, you know, get all your facts, talk, be open about it, and don't be judgmental, right? Thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Nancy Piety. I just have one last statement to make, and it's because I wasn't able to speak to what Ross had said earlier, Commissioner Ambrose. You had said that you were voting for the budget even though you weren't happy, and that you didn't feel like you had time, and you didn't feel like you had all of the facts. I understand that. I understand that that is an issue for you on a conscience level. What I think I want to reiterate is that everyone on that commission should have that same feeling. And if you don't know what every line item on that budget was, but you still voted yes to increase these people's property taxes, and you're gonna vote next week to increase these people's water and sewer taxes, then shame on you. That's lazy. Please do the work that is necessary to keep these people happy, to keep these people from having to pay because you didn't do the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I say something? I would like to say something about that. Commissioner Ambrose keeps me on my toes. He does the work, and he does the work on every item. I get more questions from him than most commissioners in my entire career. And they're very detailed questions, and there's like 5 questions in each one question. and he brings up great points, things that I don't even think about, and I learn from him. So I appreciate him, and to ever say that he doesn't do his homework, every weekend he does his work. Excuse me, I'm talking now, and you're not at the podium. Every weekend he does his work, and I respond to it.
That's not what we said. I didn't say he didn't do his homework. What I said
Okay.
was,
We've had enough. Excuse me. We've had enough of this for tonight. Please take your seat, please.
I want to correct
Please,
the record,
please,
Please, Mayor James, correct the record. I didn't say that Mayor Ambrose didn't do his
please.
homework. He
once more,
Dissatisfied. I echoed his feelings.
would you please have your seat? Do we have any responses from,
Yeah, I'd like just a moment.
okay.
One, we're not voting on water or sewer taxes or an increase in the coming weeks because the notice that was on the water bill was an error. We haven't discussed that. It's not even up for consideration. And the reason that I believe we went forward with the budget is we're legally required to have a budget by October 1. And there's no way we can do that otherwise. So there are mechanisms for addressing the shortcomings, and I am going to hold staff accountable for that. But I'm also going to be very accountable to state law and the exposures the citizens would have if we did not have a budget in place, which is why there was a yes vote.
Anyone else?
I don't think any of us sit in here happy with the current state of things, but this didn't happen last year, didn't happen a year before that, and it didn't happen 10 years before that. This has been going on for a long time, and it has needed to be changed. And that's what each one of us got elected to do what we think is best based on the people who put us into office and for the ones who didn't. So I understand the frustration, believe me, I have it. There's a lot I would say if it wasn't recorded right now that, you know, my mom and the good Lord would not want to hear. But especially being the new guy up here, this is a very difficult process. And it's not easy, and I understand that you don't care. I get it. But I can tell you this, that I'm not hard to find, and I'll have a conversation with anybody about anything, and I'm willing to listen. If I think that I have all the answers, then I'm automatically wrong. So I think every commissioner has shown the fact up here that they are willing to have those honest conversations, sometimes uncomfortable, a lot of times uncomfortable. We have lost tonight the respect for each other, unfortunately. And that's one of the things that drives me the most nuts about sitting up here, is that the second we lose that, then what are we? We are in this together. We all live in this town. This is the only town I've ever lived in. So if you think I want to watch this go like this and not go well, you're out of your mind. Because I chose to raise my family here instead of move somewhere else. So I've been invested in this. My family has. Everybody up here has. We all want to see this thing go in the right direction. We're all doing the things that we think is the right direction, and we're trying, okay? It's real easy to kind of sit out there and throw stones. Believe me, I did it when I did it. When I sat out there, it was real easy for me to blame the commission for stuff. God knows that. And it was funny because my dad, who was a city attorney for a long time, just laughed at me when I told him I was going to run. So he said, get ready. So I tell you, having only been up here 10 months, it's been extremely educating and eye-opening. And the one thing that I won't allow happen is for the light to go off of the fact that the hardworking people who run this city, they're doing a pretty damn good job. And it's easy to say, well, you should do this, you should do that, but you know, High Springs has been a closed town for so long. We didn't want any of that. Now we talk about, you know, it's funny, we talk about we want to annex, but then when we talk about running stuff out to the interstate, we're ready to burn the city hall down. But yet, on the one hand, we want to annex everybody and force them to do this, but yet we don't care about this. And it, you know, I've heard everybody up here say it, and and it's true. We got to pay our bills, and I'm not happy with raising it. And I had to vote to raise my own taxes. I'm a cop. My wife's a teacher. Neither one of those professions scream we're rich, but unfortunately, that's the place we're in. I pray to God that we can work toward that and have those honest conversations and be able to dial this back later and get us better in a better spot. But the solar farm's not online yet. We're not getting the revenues in. We have done things to go, but it takes time. Give us a little bit of time, a little bit of grace, a little bit of understanding, just a little bit. And what I do want to say is I want to have those honest conversations. So after this, if anybody would like to have a conversation, I'm going to be right outside the building, and I will stay until midnight tonight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. It doesn't matter to me. Let's have that conversation, honestly. And let's come up with some ideas together as a town, because we are in this together. The second we forget that, might as well just shut the doors.
Anyone else? Okay, then let's move along to new business. Item number 1. Discuss, consider, and act on a professional service agreement between the City of High Springs and McGrath Consulting, Inc. for general planning and grant services.
This is an agreement with Allison McGrath. She is the one who worked on our comprehensive plan, and I think she did a very good job.
Yes.
We've had a relationship with her for years. She left Kimley Horn and has decided to go back into consulting on her own. And staff would like to have the opportunity to use her again as needed. Her services will be paid for with retainers on individual cases. We have the retainer fee, and then when we use services such as hers, we pass it on, and whoever the applicant is pays those. There will be some times when staff needs a second opinion on things sometimes we always reach out to the planning council, but sometimes they are not expeditious in getting us answers when we need them. And so in those instances, we would use Allison, but it's typically a question and it doesn't even take an hour for her to answer it. So any costs that go into major projects, we would come to y'all for approval. So I would like for you to approve it so we can continue working with her.
Thank you. Commissioners comment?
Madam Mayor, I have one question. So this is basically a pass-through.
Yes.
This is
I mean,
not,
there's sometimes it won't be like.
but you'll come to us with those specifics.
Well, if it's a technical question that's gonna cost like under $1,000, I probably wouldn't come to those with you, but typically it wouldn't even cost close to that. If there's any engagement that is way more than that, then I would come to y'all.
And would she have the ability to give you and Christy a little bit of breathing room?
The breathing room wouldn't be if she wrote us ordinances, and those would be enough. I'd probably have to come to y'all for
Okay.
those.
Okay.
I mean, I would like for her to, I want to take another comb through the budget. There was no money to get anyone to help us with the LDC.
Right.
If we got the grant back, the grant for the wastewater treatment plant, it would free up some money, and I would ask y'all to consider that. But that's obviously going to be with a number of other priorities.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? Any comments from the audience? All right, commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion, we approve the professional services agreement as presented.
Second.
Okay, it has been properly moved and second that this professional service agreement with McGrath Consulting be approved. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Agreement approved, 5-0. With that, we will ask for the city's attorney report and update.
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. City manager,
Can you come back to me? I had
All
stuff
right.
written down.
assistant city manager.
I was just I'll reiterate what we talked about earlier with the AMI. Video will
Okay.
be rolling out Monday. Town halls will be announced on probably Monday or Tuesday next week, and when we're gonna have those meetings with the general public to come out. We'll do 3 of them, and first, second week of October, meters will start being installed.
Very good. Commissioner Granda.
No, I think I've said enough.
You can't do that to me.
Commissioner Rent.
I've said way too much, but I still have a couple other things. Public Works, Kevin, everybody who helped on Tuesday, you guys did yeoman service. The city got brought to its knees through no fault of our own, and we're digging in the mud, literally. And it impacted everybody so much, but most people didn't see you guys in that hole. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. I want to say thank you to Natalie, who was making calls to people saying, we don't have water, and it wasn't her fault, but she had to take that, so. Is there anything, I don't know if there's anything we can do in terms of passing this through to, obviously, the contractor, but all of the residents incurred costs through that, flushing their lines, having to buy water. Is there anything that we can do to pass through to the contractor to recover some of that revenue for the citizens who lost water? I don't know.
Yeah, we've had that discussion as staff. We've also got a bill going to their insurance company for the repair cost and staff hours.
Oh, I certainly hope
All
so,
right, good.
There was a $20,000 bill
for that one day.
today
Yeah,
was sent, and then the other lines they hit earlier,
About 11.
that was about 15,000.
11 to 15,000.
So every time they're hitting something, I'm charging them every penny I can.
yeah,
But as Bruce and I had a meeting with, just to let you all know, with Cox Communication, is there's no more directional, well, we're still doing directional board, because they can control it, but the thumping, they can't, because that, all it is pushing it in by air. If it hits a rock or anything, it veers off. They have no control over it, so there's no more of that here in this town.
gotcha.
And the crew that hit the line that shut down the water throughout the town has been removed from working
Yes.
in the
Right.
city limits, just to make you all aware as well.
Um,
That was done that day.
And I don't know, I know that the businesses are kind of different from the residents, but there were a lot of businesses that lost an entire day of revenue. How can we get information to them? I mean, the brewery, for example, they're only open 6 days a week. They lost one whole day.
Yeah, they've called into my office
Okay.
of Public Works, and
Okay.
we gave them Cox Communication.
Okay.
And they're working that on the personal side.
So is there any way we
Charging
can
them.
get that information to the businesses just as a post, or is that not a legal thing? Would that be a bad idea? You know, if they had some kind of claim they wanted to submit to compensate for an entire day of lost revenue, is that legal to put that information out there?
They can put it out there.
Yeah, because I mean, it hurt them too, and you know.
We'll get the information to you.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate everything you guys did getting that up. And Chief, I want to just say that now that we have body cameras, and we've seen a little bit of body cam footage, a lot of things happen at night. Tony does an amazing job. And I think that gives us a really unique perspective to appreciate the situation they're put in. And it always happens at night. But he just does a great job. And maybe having Caesar there helps, but I just wanted to point that out there. And the joint meeting for the interlocal agreement, is that set for everybody for the 17th, or do we know yet?
I have to check with Ashley to see if everyone said yes. And
Okay.
then to make sure the county is on board. I mean, that was, like, we're coordinating it, but I'm not sure if everyone said yes.
Okay, okay. And I just want you guys to know that I never take it personally when I'm the one in the 4-1 vote. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I appreciated the September 11th proclamation so much, because we all remember what that was like. But you know, I remember almost as viscerally what September 12th was like. And this country was a different country for a little while. And I want this to be a September 12th community, and I think we can do that. High Springs is special enough we can do that. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams?
Also, I want to say thank you for staff, the hole in the road. Passed by a couple of times, seen y'all in there. Only thing I can see is y'all probably need to get some of that mud away from Watershed. They side door. I mean, the mud is stacked up, so it might be before somebody say something. I commend you guys and for getting the word out to everyone that was what was going on, and try to. I know y'all put it on the machine out here, but people need to sign up for the notices. So try to encourage people to sign up so they can kind of know what's going on. And also, I think every commissioner sitting up here got great concerns for High Springs. Each commissioner sitting up here have a great concern for High Springs. And we don't take our jobs for granted. We do our research. We talk to people. And if I don't answer to a question, which I don't know at all, which none of us know at all, I ask for somebody that do know. And I ask citizens, if you have questions, come to City Hall and ask. Instead of getting it off social media or talking to negative folks, get the truth. I ask, get the truth. That way we can have peace and harmony. We don't have to be fighting against one another. Just get the facts. Nobody take this for granted. Nobody. And we do our due diligence to try to do what's best for the city of High Springs as a whole. As I don't say it on many occasions, I don't work for one community. I work for every citizen in the city of High Springs, Florida, and I try my best to do the best
for this city as a whole. Always have and always will. But my thing is, please, get the true facts. Get the true facts. Don't listen to everything here out there. Come to the right people and find out. Tom's going to know more about public works than anyone probably sitting up in this thing, in this dais right now. So get the facts. Get the true facts before we take stuff and run with it and put the wrong things out there. See, that's what kind of stuff causes division. That's what kind of stuff called disagreements and people going back and forth. It's just, that's not High Springs. That's not High Springs. That's not where we operate. That's not the way we operate. I heard it's just not. So again, let's try to get the facts before we start bickering and arguing and sit down and talk like sensible people, because we can do it. I've seen it before, and I know we can do it again. So let's work together and do the good for High Spring. We might not agree on everything, but after we talk, we still go down and sit down and have a Coke together. That's what sensible people do. So please, get the true facts before we start making decisions and making the comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'm gonna also echo the sentiments about the repair to our water system. The last time we had a collapse of our water system of that magnitude, it was July of 2017. It was the 4th or the 5th, and then again on the 7th, finishing on the 8th, when a contractor again damaged a pipe which broke. That took almost 10 hours to effect that repair and even begin to restore water. The next time the temporary patch, because they couldn't do a permanent one, given it, the pipe broke again, and it took staff from GRU, it took former city employees working for more than 14 hours through the night to make that repair. And so when we talk about, you know, our staff and how good our city is, you know, this time, our city staff did that repair. They had the items they needed to do the repair. It was done internally, and the accident happened right about noon, a little before, and by 5 o'clock, we were bringing water pressure back up in less than 5 hours. I think that says a lot on how much our department and our staff has grown and our ability to handle our water system. So I really appreciate the effort and abilities that have been incorporated internally, that we were able to do a permanent patch in that period of time. So thank you very much. I echo the watershed conversation, whether it was us cleaning the street or DOT, but we blasted the watershed building and that sidewalk. So if staff can find time, I think we owe it to that business that was also put out, that we can at least clean up the side of their building that we disturbed. The other thing I want to point out, staff has been working on this, and again, it's staff looking at the details, but we've often wondered, why isn't DOT doing this, or why isn't DOT doing that, or why do they keep telling us we're not warranted to lower the speed limit in this section of road? And they say the data doesn't deliver. Well, recently, staff took the time to read the data on why the light at 340 that we qualify for wasn't being budgeted. And believe it or not, what we found out is there was a software glitch, and there are no accidents in High Springs. Like literally, the system DOT uses when the police department reports an accident, whether it's on 441 or at that intersection or anywhere else, it is not going into the system for anyone to see. And they're working to correct that, I understand. They're working to go back a couple of years and get that data in. It doesn't show that we've ever had a fatality on 441.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate the staff taking the time to look at the details, set up a face-to-face meeting with DOT, and bring this to light and open some eyes. So hopefully we can have a lot of these things looked at with fresh eyes and some of the needs and some of our traffic issues in the city now. So thank you, Chief Shepard and Tom and Bruce, for making that happen. And that is it.
That's it. Well, I too would like to give my thanks to all of you that were out there trying to get the water back on for all of us. And to clarify something for me, Thomas and Bruce, you said that you putting in a request for possible reimbursement for the citizens
For our time, for the repair,
for your time.
for the city's cost, yes.
All right, because a lady came to me today and asked me if she could possibly get some reimbursement for her entire freezer full of meat. And I told her I didn't know I would bring it up, so that's why I mentioned that, so I don't know. And again, to staff, thank you too for all that you do. I appreciate it.
Have y'all seen the flowers downtown that the CRA put out with the help of Public Works?
Yes, I was gonna mention the pots, this particular, that they are so beautiful, I think. You did a very good job. Very good job. Anything from anybody
Do you
else?
have more? Did you find your
If
notes?
not,
Y'all went over a lot of the stuff I had already, so I wasn't gonna repeat it.
can I have a motion? All right,